Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where our drawing tries to kill us because this week we watched Village of the Angels.
Written by Chris Chibnall and Maxine Alderton.
Directed by Jamie Magnus Stone.
And aired on November 21st, 2021. Interesting date there, 11/21/21. Or 21/11/21 if you're anywhere else in the world besides the US.
Anywhere that uses a reasonable date scheme.
The one here, I will admit that the American date scheme is inferior to the rest of the world's, but it does make sense. People say it doesn't make sense, but it does, because it's just a numeric version of like saying November 21st, 2021.
I mean, I guess that's true. But, you know, a lot of other countries don't do that either. They write like 21 November 2021.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I'm defending it, but I actually do that whenever I have to write the date, and it's not like being prescribed to me what way I have to write it. I just write it the British way, 21 November 2021.
Yeah, so do I, actually. Undermining your own argument, Keon.
Yeah, well, I don't, maybe this is just me playing devil's advocate. Who knows? Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily prescribe to every argument that I make.
Interesting.
You actually have a reason to do that because you're South African, but I don't. I guess.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, interestingly, I guess this episode, takes place on the 21st of November as well, Just interesting that Chris Chibnall's going all in on this episode's taking place the day they air.
Right. It doesn't take place in 2021, though. It takes place in 1967 and 1901.
Kind of makes me think that starting this season on Halloween was the plan all along. Some people theorized, not us, but some people theorized that they were like delaying the season, or that they weren't done, or that the season was in chaos because it wasn't done yet, or they were delaying because they needed time to finish the CG. But all of these kind of things, like the first episode being set on Halloween and this episode being set on the 21st of November, all kind of just point to this actually being the plan all along.
Yeah, I mean, when did they wrap Doctor Who Flux? It was like over the summer, right?
Yeah, sometime over the summer. They
had this in place since then. I mean, unless they just did like some pickup dub over lines. It didn't seem like it, though.
I still remember the rumor I heard, which I guess we haven't actually had proven untrue yet. But the rumor that one of the specials is just a complete and utter disaster and is a complete mess, has been reshot twice. It can't be released in China because it features a female Chinese pirate, and that's apparently a no-go. All a rumor, again, just a rumor that I read online. Probably cooked up by somebody who hates the Chibnall era, but I still remember this rumor and being like, wow, sounds like a good time.
We'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised, given the content of what you just said, if that was completely untrue. Does Doctor Who even air officially in China?
I don't know.
I'm Googling it right now. If I don't get an answer in 5 seconds, I'll put it in the show notes. Well, here's this article. Doctor Who is banned in China because of government's something or the other.
Great.
From Showbiz Cheat Sheet.
Thanks. Showbiz Cheat Sheet.
China bans shows, apparently, according to this article, which is from May of this year, 2021, that involve time travel. Weird thing to ban,
yeah,
but all right.
Odd.
I know for a fact that China doesn't allow like death worship in to be depicted, or they strongly, you know, disencourage. That's not a word, but whatever. They strongly disencourage movies, shows, whatever, from depicting like death cults and death worship and stuff, which is relevant, I guess, not to Doctor Who as a whole, but only to Village of the Angels. With Azure's sort of, Messiah-like appearance before the people of whatever that planet was called.
Yeah, her messianic complex.
Well, I'll just drop this article that I just looked up in the show notes. Probably not going to do anything else to verify whether it's true or not, but hey.
Well, at least I won't have to go looking for it then. Nice. Oh, jeez. I guess before we get started, I just want to mention this because I found this very funny. Or not funny, just very interesting. But apparently, Janet Fielding, well known for playing Tegan on Doctor Who, really liked this episode.
Oh, wait.
Enough so that she tweeted about it.
It's twice. Discourage. That's the opposite of encourage. Discourage. All right. All right. Whatever. Sorry.
No, you're good. Anyway, I was just saying Janet Fielding really liked this episode. Enough to tweet about it twice.
Huh? Good for her. Yeah, glad to hear she's enjoying it. Or just
in one tweet she says, bloody good story. And in another she says, absolutely brilliant.
Maybe she's not talking about Village of the Angels, though.
No, they're like the quote tweets, so she's like quote tweeting the absolutely brilliant is attached to the Doctor Who, the official BBC Doctor Who account, tweeting, "Did you enjoy Village of the Angels?" And
all right,
the bloody good story
then.
is the bloody good story actually might even refer to the whole season because it's attached to a tweet that says, "Get a feeling the top 5 Jodie Whittaker stories are all going to be flux, hashtag Doctor Who." And Janet Fielding quote tweeted it and said, "Bloody good story."
Yeah. I mean, at this point in the game, this episode 4, point that we're at currently is pretty interesting in that, like, for multiple reasons. I guess the angle that I was going to come to this with would be like, at this point, most people's complaints, valid or not, are in relation to the story of it, right? Not anything else, but maybe other things. But that's what I've seen for the most part. Oh, I was also going to say at this point, this is a weird episode 4 point because, like, we were watching this like almost a week ago.
We have 5 days.
Yeah.
We watched this on Monday, November 22nd. As usual, watching a day late. We're recording this on November 26th.
Yeah, the episode is completely gone from my mind, though. Like, it's just not there anymore. But anyway, probably shouldn't be admitting that, but hey. It's interesting, though, I was going to say, like, they're still introducing a lot more than they are, resolving, wrapping up, however you want to say it. There's still...
Yeah, we finished this episode and went, there's still so many questions to be answered.
Right, it's unraveling the thread still, rather than tying up some of the ends that you might have expected it to tie up by this point.
Just so many things that still need to be answered. This episode even still asks more questions than in fact, I don't think there's a single question answered in this episode. Amazingly, episode 4 doesn't answer a single question.
It doesn't answer it directly, but I think based on the Doctor's conversations with the rogue angel, basically, I think, like, we have a clearer picture of what the division is.
I mean, we have I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think we know more about the division, but I don't think that necessarily means we have any clearer picture of what they are, what they do.
We'll see. We'll see as we discuss it.
Yeah, well, the episode opens with, I believe it opens with Mrs. Hayward leading the priest through a a church
It
grounds.
begins with a if it's not the same house and same shot, it's definitely a visual callback to, I forget which episode it was in. It was either 3 or 2. Where you see Claire appear in front of that, like, we called it like variously Lovecraftian or Gaiman-esque or something like that. That, like,
It
the
was
haunted
more the
house looking thing.
Sontarans, and it was the doctor in front of the house in that episode.
Oh, it was the doctor?
Yeah.
Well, that's weird.
It was like, in that episode, it was very clearly a vision that the doctor had had, because the very next shot is the doctor going, "What was that?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, snapping out of it.
So that's this. It's the Village of the Angels, aka Devon. Where is Devon? I know it's in the UK, but like, where in the UK is it?
It could be anywhere.
Yeah, it could be. I'm guessing it's in England. Yes, it's it's a county.
Yes.
No, it's a county. It's
like-
not a city.
It's a county in the southwest, it looks like.
Yeah, it's on that little like point that sticks out of England.
It's on the Florida of England.
Yeah. I wonder what that one. I don't know if you're looking at the map of it, but I am. I wonder what that one that's further west of it is. The actual tip.
It's apparently Cornwall.
Huh.
Now you know. So the southwest of England is known for cheddar cheese, which originated in the Somerset village of Cheddar. It's also known for Devon cream teas, crabs, Cornish pastries, and cider. How did we even get here?
I don't know. Point is, they're in Devon, England. It's a creepy night, and a little girl is missing.
I believe we then get a shot of Claire. She's meeting with a doctor. What is it? Eustachius Jericho, I think, is his name.
Yep, very sort of old-timey name for an old-timey guy. We learn later on that he was in. I don't think they specify which war, but I'm pretty sure it was World War One.
I thought it was 2, because I thought he compared everything to the horrors of the Holocaust.
Maybe it was 2. Yeah, it was one of the two. So yeah.
Yeah, so this is 1967 in Devon. We see Claire. She is having her brain waves read by Eustachius Jericho. Unclear what kind of Dr. Jericho is, but she states / implies she's been having this recurring problem, and they're there to figure out what's going on in her brain when this whatever happens.
He seems like some sort of fringe psychologist.
Some Sigmund Freud knockoff follower. I don't know.
The machine can detect lies, though, as it detects her brainwaves, and she lets slip that she was born in the 80s, but she immediately corrects, in quotes, herself, and tells him that she was born in the 30s.
Well, the 30s, yeah, I have 35 here.
Meanwhile, an angel is invading the TARDIS. As we saw at the end of last episode, I think we get sort of a repeat.
Yeah, we get a last time on
shots
Doctor Who too at the beginning, which also kind of repeats a lot of this.
So the angel is, the lights on the TARDIS are busted. There's a strobe effect going on, and the angel is commandeering the TARDIS.
Yeah, the lights are flickering. The angel has the TARDIS. What's going to happen? Anything could happen.
The Doctor decides to cross the streams in a desperate attempt to resolve this. I don't really even know what this was. She like has some sort of device that will do something beneficial to them if used correctly, but if used incorrectly, they'll like all die or something along those lines.
It's going to short circuit the TARDIS, I think she says, which will basically force it to reboot and kick the angels out, I guess. But she says that like it might kick them out too, or it might just blow up, or it might just kill them, and they're like, "Well, we're going to die anyway if the angels get to us, right?" And she's like, "I guess."
Not necessarily, but sure.
Yeah. So they all close their eyes, and she crosses the streams, touches the wires, and it works. But then it works, but the celebration is short-lived because then the Doctor immediately points out that they don't know where they are. They might be exactly where the angel was trying to get them when it stole the TARDIS to begin with. And then, and they have no way to get out of there because the TARDIS is short-circuited.
Yeah, which we learn over the course of the next 55 minutes is basically probably true. They are exactly where they're supposed to be.
Well, we learn this pretty quickly. So they open the door and we meet Gerald and what was Jean?
Geraint. No, it's Gerald.
They're using the phone.
It wasn't even pronounced Geraint.
No, it wasn't.
It was Garant.
It was Garant.
Yeah, so Gerald and Jean are sort of an older couple. They're looking for the little girl who's gone missing, whose name is Peggy. Yaz and Dan are sent to assist them while the Doctor investigates the house.
Yeah. Because she like her sonic screwdriver starts beeping or acting up and pointing her towards the house, and she's like, "What is this? What does it mean?"
She goes inside, and I think it's either the first or one of the first times that the 13th Doctor has used the psychic paper. She sort of introduces herself by using it to Jericho, that is.
Yeah, bringing back the psychic paper.
Just another one of those things incorporated into Flux that really makes you go like, yeah, this could be a finale to it all. This
all might end here. Mm-hmm. Really, they just need the Master to show up, and that's it. That would be it. We've even got Kate Stewart, spoiler, showing up next week. Like, we've even got Unit coming back. So,
it wasn't a surprise to me because that was the one thing I had spoiled about this episode. But at the same time, just on like a macro scale, it is a massive surprise that Kate Stewart makes an appearance in this season to begin with.
That and the Ood!
Yeah, the Ood. Hope Chibnall comes through and includes a scene of them vomiting up their internal organs as they usually do. Or as they did.
They only included that in one Ood episode.
Yeah, was it just once? I thought it was maybe a couple times.
It was just the once. And yet it is the most striking image of Ood kind that we have.
Mm-hmm. Well, Claire isn't feeling very good. She goes into the bathroom, and she has... At this point, it's unclear what this is, but she looks in the mirror and sees sort of a vision of herself with angel wings.
Yeah. I have a note here immediately that says, "Is Claire a weeping angel? Dun 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 dun." I don't know why I did the RoboCop theme.
Anyway, they're being attacked by weeping angels. There's an entire host of them outside. Interestingly enough, there's a scene or like a portion of a scene where apparently Jericho has this hall with sort of a series of windows on either side facing one another, and you just see like angels lined up at the windows. I thought that was pretty interesting.
There are lots of angels in this story.
There are, yeah.
Lots of angels. While this is going on, Dan and Yaz are looking for Peggy, and they see a scarecrow, and Dan's like, "Hey, was that scarecrow there before?" And Yaz goes, "No," and they blink, and the scarecrow runs towards them, and they're like, "Oh no, oh no."
So yet again, Yaz and Dan are just being hurtled across time and space.
Yeah, I made this comment while we are watching it, but might as well make this comment on recording. Like, Dan just getting the short end of the stick with this whole adventure with the Doctor, because every single episode he gets flung in time somewhere away from the Doctor. He spent, something like, I don't know, 10 actual minutes with the Doctor herself over the course of the last 4 episodes.
Yeah, and just when you think about it in that way, it's like, imagine the last, 4-5 hours for Dan? Like, just imagine everything he's been through. He got off work on whatever that was, on that Sunday. He wasn't even actually
Halloween.
working. Working, in quotes, because he wasn't even supposed to be there. But he got off doing what he was doing, and then got flung into this misadventure. You can't even call it an adventure for him. And he is one of the most accepting Doctor Who characters. I know we don't have time, yes, from a story perspective, to detail any of his confusion or really his reaction to the events in general. But at the same time, he's taken all this in stride, man.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, full credit to Dan. 10 seconds in, he just accepted this whole thing. He's like, yep, why not? I'm just along for the ride. Freaking space dog kidnapped me. Why not?
It is true, though, that, having Carvanista on your side does probably a lot to get you to accept this quicker than you maybe otherwise would. Or rather, having Carvanista sort of, getting into his own misadventures sort of by your side.
Carvanista doesn't show up in this episode.
No, I think this is the first episode without him. He wasn't in the last episode, I believe, but we did sort of get the hint that he was one of the Doctor's party when she was originally storming the Temple of Atropos.
Yeah. Once again, still hasn't been confirmed.
I think
whether or not that's actually Carvanista, but like we said last week, it'd be extremely odd if it wasn't.
Yeah. He was in the preview for next week, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, yeah.
Next week being 2 days from now.
2 days from when we're recording this, the day that this is going to go out.
Mm-hmm. Well, we get more scenes of Belle.
Yeah, we suddenly cut to Belle.
Honestly, thought her story was done. I thought that entire thing from the previous episode was basically just a way to kind of, describe or depict Vinder's backstory. But no, these are actual characters.
Yeah, and just because we forgot what the little thing she was carrying was, it was named last week. It's Tigme. Its name is Tigme.
I don't think they ever name dropped it in what was it called?
In Once Upon Time, they did. They did, actually.
Oh.
She, in one of her messages, in a similarly ham-fisted way to me and your as yet unborn child will find you, she says, me and my new friend Tigme will find you.
There's no planet called time.
Oh my god.
I have to get it in every single week. And I'll say again, it's not even that, odd of a line. It's not even that, sort of awkwardly delivered or anything like that. I kind of think, I was looking up the transcript of the Halloween Apocalypse on chakotea.net or whatever that transcript site is called.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't find that line. So I definitely am misremembering exactly what it was. But, I kind of feel like I had this moment where I was like, did I just make this up in its entirety?
You're having a Mandela effect moment.
Well, it's like I control F for a bunch of variations of There's No Planet Called Time, and I couldn't find anything related to it, seemingly. Then again, it is just a transcript site, so maybe they messed up, but I don't know. Good to see, though, that they're still around and still transcribing the episodes, because they were one of the first that I think we had found when we first started this podcast back in 2014.
Yeah.
So they're still at it.
Way back when. Almost 8 years ago that we started the podcast.
Yeah, the 11th Doctor era. Just to put that into perspective for you, the 12th Doctor hadn't even aired yet when we started. He did later that year, I believe, but yeah. Well, actually, did the 12th Doctor start in 2014 or 15? I think it was 2014.
I think it was 15. 16. No, it was 2014. Series 8 was 2014, so I meant his last... Yeah. Started in 2014.
It couldn't have... Yeah, I was going to say, it couldn't have been 16. No way. Well, because he wrapped up in 17. So that makes sense. 2014.
This podcast will have outlasted 2 doctors and 1 showrunner.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's life.
Yeah, I guess that's life. Anyway, Dan and Yaz have ended up in 1901, and they find Peggy in 1901. And they're like, where are we? And Peggy's like, you're in 1901.
We'd gotten reference earlier in the episode to the fact that in 1901, the inhabitants of the town disappeared and nobody knows what happened to them.
Yeah, Claire explains to the doctor that, like, specifically tonight, November 21st, 1967, everybody in the town disappears. The doctor's like, well, that makes sense. There's angels everywhere. And she says, yeah, but this is the second time it's happened. It happened in 1901 as well. And she goes, what?
And, sucks to be Dan and Yaz, because that's where they've been sent back to. That's where they're now stuck. It's interesting because they have sort of a scene where they are being introduced to the situation by Peggy and kind of just figuring out what's going on. And both Dan and Yaz are trying to, I guess needlessly trying to calm and sort of placate Peggy. She, seemingly very mature for her age, is just, completely accepting of the situation.
Right.
She I mean, we don't know how long she's been there, but, like, she seemingly has no qualms with admitting, like, yeah, we're stuck here. We're screwed.
Yeah, she's actually the one placating them in a way.
Mm-hmm. Placating not really being the right word to use there. I say just because I was the one who first said it, but I think people know what we mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at my notes here, trying to figure out what happens next. The angels are still trying to break into the house.
Yeah, the angels are trying to break in, so the doctor sets up sort of like a CCTV system almost, where she sets up a cell phone in the front lobby, and then they take a TV downstairs into the basement, because the basement is defensible, and she uses a sonic on the phone to turn it into a live feed to the TV. She says, yeah, this is really dangerous because, like, the image of an angel becomes an angel. But she, Tris Chibnall and Maxine Alderton here, hit and running Stephen Moffat's lore here by, like, then explaining that this actually requires, like, a lot of energy for the angel to do. To turn the image of an angel into a new angel requires a lot of energy on the original angel's part.
Yeah, I forgot about that. They seemingly do it pretty readily, though, throughout the episode.
They do wait. They don't do it immediately out of the TV. They do wait for a while. So the doctor says, yeah, they usually don't prefer not to have to do that. And if they can get in another way, then they're going to. And then the paper drawing that the doctor had ripped up earlier turns into an angel, and she tears it up again and tries to burn it, and it just sets the angel on fire. She goes, well, that didn't work.
Meanwhile, as all this is going on, Claire's eyes are, like, leaking debris and sort of stone dust.
Yeah, she basically reveals that she's got an angel in her head, and the doctor's like, I don't even think that's possible. And she's like, anything is possible, doctor.
Yeah, are we at the point yet? If not, it's coming up very soon, where it's like, she basically rolls up her sleeve, and her entire arm looks sort of
stone. Yeah, I think that happens now.
She just rolls up her sleeve, and she's like, probably should have mentioned this sooner, but...
It's fine. Nothing to be concerned about here.
Yeah.
Nothing to be concerned about here. And then the doctor's like, well, let's see if I can communicate with this angel. So she asks Jericho to hook up, well, she doesn't ask. Sorry, I have that a little backwards. He asks the doctor if he can hook up his equipment to monitor their brainwaves while the doctor does this.
Yeah,
because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, because the doctor is basically going to do her dive inside someone's mind thing with Claire.
And contact.
And Jericho, as the angels are like breaching the perimeter, Jericho's like, oh, hang on, let me get my equipment set up.
Well, it's because the doctor says that, like, they must be coming for that angel. And so if she can figure out why they're coming for that angel specifically, then she might be able to stop the angels from coming.
Mm-hmm. Unlikely, but yeah, all right.
It's all she's got, okay? There's also a scene here where she talks with Jericho about, like, how he needs to not blink, and he says, I've stared down the horrors of the Holocaust. Nothing's going to make me blink against these angels, Doctor. You have my word.
Does he explicitly say the Holocaust? I thought he just said, the war or something.
No, he explicitly says the Holocaust. I remember this quite well. Not only because it was in the episode, but also because someone made a tweet that was like, man, Village of the Angels was great because it wasn't political. And someone said, he literally mentioned the Holocaust. How can you say it wasn't political?
That doesn't really make it, like, political. I mean...
I guess the other tweet was... The actual text of the other tweet was, he compares staring the angels to, like, staring down the horrors of the Holocaust. How can you say that's not political?
How can you... I mean...
it's just making a very political comparison, It
doesn't...
Anyway, this other tweet wasn't my tweet. I don't really care to defend it. We don't need to dwell on it.
Yeah.
I only brought it up to mention that I know that he mentioned the Holocaust explicitly.
All right. It just doesn't, to me, that doesn't make it political in any way. It just makes it historical.
Well, again, it wasn't my tweet, and I'm not really going to defend it, because I'm not going to say that I agree or disagree with it. So,
anyway, the doctor dives into Claire's mind. And we get what is most probably that scene back when this was like a year ago. I think it was one of the first sort of flux-related leaks or something like that, where they were filming on some beach, and it was just Jodie Whittaker, like, looking miserable, as you do at British beaches. No, I'm just kidding.
There were going to be some. What do I want to say? Some of our British fans are going to be. They're going to have some words to say.
There's going to be some displeasure surrounding that comment for sure. I regret nothing, and I don't take it back. So they're at this beach.
Okay, well, I guess you're doubling down. Fair enough.
They're on this sort of beach. It looks very cool, temperature-wise and stylistically. The reason it looks cool is, like, there's sort of a mirror effect going on where the doctor is on... She's standing right at the shoreline, and Claire is also standing right at the shoreline, but they're facing each other, so it's two opposing shorelines facing one another.
It's also like they've done this whole thing in grayscale, but they're not using gray, they're using, like, a sort of blue. So everything's kind of on a blue scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks very visually interesting. I assume everyone listening to this episode has watched the episode and knows what we're talking about, but if you somehow haven't, I just recommend looking it up for an image of it.
Wow. Nice. Nice endorsement.
So the doctor gets some of the information she needs. Once again, she's left hanging a little bit, just like she was in the previous episode.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the scene briefly because I just want to mention something that's just weird. I don't necessarily think there's anything deeper to it than it just being like weird. But in the episode, the rogue angel has a scar on her face on her right side. You know, the right side on the angel's right side. So like if you're looking at the angel, it's on the left, but like the Doctor Who account posted some pictures from this episode, you know, from this scene, which you can tell because they're all blue, and they're mirrored from how they appear in the episode because the scar on the angel is on the angel's left side. The scar on the face. So, yeah, you know, I don't think there's anything deeper to that except that I just thought it was weird and I wanted to mention it.
It's probably nothing. It does set off a bit of an alarm considering the actual like ARGs they tried to implement this season and stuff like that, sort of tying it into the online experience. I mean, you know, it's not out of the question that there could be something more to that. On the other hand, though, maybe the images they were using, like on the because social media sites each have their own like way of displaying multiple images, right? So when you have more than one image, they sort of put it into a collage. So maybe it just like looked better in the collage mirrored or something like that. So they mirrored it type thing.
Maybe, yeah. I just found the tweet here with the images, and yeah, the scar is definitely on the other side of the face. Like they're definitely mirrored. And I don't know why that is. I'll link the tweet in the show notes for all those curious, I suppose. Yeah, like I just wanted to mention it as something weird that happened. I only remember the scar being on the right side of the angel's face because I made this angel has the Kylo Ren look going on when we were watching the episode. The angel also, a part of what the rogue angel gives the Doctor is the fact that the reason why the angels are attacking the village are because they're working for the division, and they want the rogue angel because the rogue angel knows everything about the division, including all the memories that the Doctor has lost.
Right.
So she promises to give the Doctor anything she wants to know about the division if the Doctor can save her from the angels.
And interestingly enough, in this scene, she doesn't call the division the division. I actually think she does a couple times, but she more commonly calls it just division.
Right. Which, very interesting. Once again, going back to last week when we were talking about how, you know, Flux is a very on-the-nose name, and how perhaps division/the division may also be a very on-the-nose name for something we're not yet aware of.
Right, and this is obviously giving a more sort of metaphorical slant to it. While watching the episode, I theorized, and we'll have to, you know, wait and see if there's any truth to this, but I theorized that division is called division/the division because it's what caused space and time to divide, as Azure and Swarm seem to be alluding to.
Well, and as Orsock kind of alluded to last week when she said that the Flux is a spatial event and that Swarm and Azure are like a temporal event, both happening at the same time. Which, like, I kind of buy that theory, you know? I buy it.
Yeah, there may be like two sides of the same coin split up by the division. Or something like that. I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe the revelation is going to be that the Fugitive Doctor and the 13th Doctor are the same person, but, like, divided a la the Valyard split off from the Doctor.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be something. Now that you say that, I think there's going to be something at least along those lines. There's too many on the nose references to both of them. Think back to Fugitive of the Jadoon, where both the 13th Doctor and the Fugitive Doctor are like, "Wait, are you in my past?" Or like, "I don't remember this." Like, "Are you in my future? Is this in time?" There's too many on the nose things where it's like they don't know, they can't put the timeline together.
Yeah, and even when the Doctor just explicitly says in Once Upon Time that she's like the Fugitive Doctor's future, it's a very like, I'm saying this to simplify the whole explanation and to get us to the I need to know what's going on here moment of this conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, I would be shocked if Joe Martin's Doctor doesn't come back again by the end of the 13th Doctor's run. Maybe she doesn't show up again by the end of Flux, but I'd be shocked if she doesn't show up again by the end of this era.
Right. Honestly, it was only a matter of time before I said this. I was kind of trying not to say it, but it's like for the first time in Doctor Who history, it almost feels like, the massive expectations and theories we're coming up with are going to be met for once. That sounds harsh, but remember back in the classic show when we would just come up with all these wild theories and they just completely drop the ball, and not that they're somehow obliged 40 years before we started the podcast to follow something that we said, but it's we would just come up with really cool stuff, and Doctor Who would then proceed to do some not cool stuff.
Because the classic show was working on such a different era of television, and we were always like, man, wouldn't it be cool if XYZ massive grand overarching plot happened? And always be like, yes. The answer is always yes, it would be really cool if that happened. But is it going to happen? No.
Yeah. Doctor Who was also a show that into the late 70s and 80s was operating on a different, way differently than a lot of shows at the time were. Still having the same.
Yeah, I mean, Doctor Who is always
Go ahead.
Doctor Who has always been its own kind of beast. It's almost impossible to categorize. It's almost impossible to be oh, Doctor Who is exactly like XYZ other show, because it's just almost never is.
Yeah, there really is nothing, or at least very little else like it. Anyway, another interesting bit of dialogue that the Angel says here is I was division. I don't know if there's anything more to that, or if they're just saying that they were a part of the division.
Yeah.
As in, you'd say, I don't know, I was... I don't know why I'm going with the CIA, but I was CIA or something like that. Probably because they're listening in. No, I'm just kidding. No, that would be the FBI.
So, oh, sorry, I closed my notes on accident. Okay, they're back. So, I have a silly joke note here that says the premonition of the angel became the angel. Oh, that's not a joke. That's actually that's the Doctor's explanation for how the angel got into Claire's mind. Wow, good thing I wrote that down. Actually.
Oh my god, that's somehow very telling of the actual events of the episode. You look at a week later and you go that. You think it's a joke type thing. Well,
no, that's the Doctor explaining how the angel got into Claire's mind. Because Claire somehow... So there is actually an element of Claire that is still unexplained, potentially probably may never be explained, that Claire has had these premonitions of some sort. She said she's had a premonition of the Doctor and the TARDIS and the angel taking the TARDIS. It is unclear, to me at least, whether or not that was actually Claire in Halloween Apocalypse, or some alternate version of her that became a premonition that she had.
I'm pretty sure it was her.
So we really don't know how she gets to that street, I guess is my point yet still.
I think it was just exactly what happened in Halloween Apocalypse. I'd be surprised if it was anything else. But then again, this is Doctor Who Flux.
No, so. but what I'm saying is how she... Because when she's on that street, she knows who the Doctor is, So I guess
Oh
the
yeah,
question
yeah,
is,
at the beginning. Okay, yeah.
had she actually met the Doctor before, or was it just that she had already had that premonition of the Doctor, and that's how she knew
No,
who
it,
she
it has to. It
was?
has to be the former. It has to be because she even has that line of like, "Oh God, you guys haven't met me yet."
But she only gets sent back to 1967 after that happens, because that's the last thing we see of Claire in Halloween Apocalypse is her
Yeah,
getting
but it might have
attacked by
been
that
two different
angel.
iterations of her. Yep.
Yeah, so like I said, is still that element of like, how did she know the Doctor before that? That's still, I guess, unexplained. Was it a premonition? Did she actually meet the Doctor before? We don't
The
know.
actor who plays her, who we're going to detail at the end of the episode, looks a lot like Jenna Coleman. And Claire, the name itself, sounds a lot like Clara.
I wouldn't read too much into that, just because I wouldn't want to be disappointed. There are so many other balls up in the air already that to focus on. There was the whole like Outpost Rose thing too. That like
That's the thing is like, I don't say that necessarily because I actually think they're going to come out and be like, yes, this is Clara or another version of her or something like that. But there's so many of those. Outpost Rose maybe isn't a tiny reference 'cause it's damn obvious, but like there's so many of those like little sort of slips, you know, where it's like,
just so many little details just
it's
slipped
like,
in
what
there.
if, just going along with sort of maybe a crazy theory here, if you want to just kind of extrapolate from the idea that like the Fugitive Doctor and the 13th Doctor are sort of this split being. What if the Fugitive Doctor is like sort of the prime continuation of like the earlier Doctors, so like the 12th Doctor or something like that, whereas like the 13th Doctor is in sort of this alternate reality where it's like the companions, like Clara is Claire and Rose is like just a space station or something like that. I don't know. Because there is like. With the 13th Doctor's era, it was such like a clean almost break from what happened before. Like there's barely any reference to what happened before. There's barely any acknowledgement of like anything that came before the woman who fell to Earth.
But that is in a way very like classic Who-esque, anytime a new Doctor took over, there were some references to the previous Doctor, but anytime the showrunner changed, it was like, the previous era is dead to me. Like we didn't see Hinchcliffe and Holmes referencing the David Whittaker era, right? And then we didn't see Hinchcliffe and Adams really referencing Hinchcliffe and Holmes that much, except for the Fourth Doctor carrying on. Then like the J&T era barely referenced any of that.
Again, like
so.
I'm not, sort of, I don't really buy into the idea. I'm just sort of, speculating here. Would be cool though.
You're just kind of spitballing.
Hell yeah. Anyway, speaking of references to previous eras, the Doctor reverses the polarity of the neutron flow.
Yeah, this was great. When she said this, I was like, yeah!
Yeah, that, the reaction
Meanwhile,
meme, the four guys on the couch.
Oh, yeah. That was us. Yeah. That was us when the Ood showed up, too, and when Kate Stewart showed up. Yeah.
It'll be in the show notes what we're talking about. By the way, just to tie this all back, I actually did know the meme about the bear that Dylan referenced. It just wasn't a bear, it was a monkey. It's that monkey puppet meme with the monkey looking skeptically off to the right. It's right.
It looks like a bear to me. It looks like a bear to me. I'll link it in the show notes again.
If you look at the entire puppet, like just Google that meme and you'll see the entire puppet and you'll see that it looks like a monkey.
Okay, that's probably true. I'll give you that. That's probably true. But in the meme, you only see his head.
Yeah, it still looks like a monkey. Anyway, they they make their escape. I forget how, but they make their way into like the underground catacombs underneath the house, getting into some real H.P. Lovecraft sort of stuff here.
Or to make a more topical reference, some P.J. Hammond stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, this whole episode is just like it's just P.J. Hammond.
It is. It's very Hammond-esque.
The Doctor Who episode.
The entire thing has been, actually. Once Upon a Time and this one in particular.
We're just leaning heavily into the P.J. Hammond-esque stuff.
I'm glad for it.
Yeah, I'm here for it. P.J. Hammond is the greatest TV show runner of all time, next to Patrick McGowan and Hinchcliffe and Holmes, obviously.
P.J. Hammond is, honestly, an auteur. You know, we've been having this ongoing discussion on Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast, our classic sci-fi podcast, on which we're watching Firefly. Check that out. About whether Joss Whedon is an auteur. But in my mind, when it comes to P.J. Hammond, it's not even a question. He just is. His style is so distinctive and so different from everything else surrounding him that it's not even up for debate.
It's even when he doesn't even like direct the episode, when he only writes it, like in Torchwood, you're like, this is a P.J. Hammond episode, isn't it?
Yep.
Like, that's how distinctive his style is.
And it's honestly, it's hard to like even put to words what he does.
It's 5 episodes of asking questions and then 1 episode that answers 50% of them and leaves the rest of them completely unanswered forever.
It's that, but like, to me, the most amazing part of his style is that, like, while you're watching the episode, while you're in the moment, you're like, okay, yes, I get this. This makes sense. I understand it. I'm following this. But then you look back and you're like, what? It's like he writes dreams. You know, it's like you look back and you're like, what was that? Like, what?
You watch it, you know, and the best thing about PJ Hammond-esque things, and I think that this is what is really applicable to Flux. You when you're watching it, you don't really feel very overwhelmed by it. You watch it and you go, okay, I think I get it. But then the instant it finishes and you think about it for anything more than 5 seconds, you're like, wait a minute, I didn't understand that at all. And the more you think about it, the more you realize that it's just this complete fever dream that, like, you can barely even remember, that, like, barely even processed in your mind. Like, you were just along for the ride for an hour. You thought you were right there, understanding every moment, and all of a sudden you're like, you can't even comprehend the whole
thing. It's almost like a traumatic experience. It's like you in the moment you think you're in control, and then you look back and you're like, no, I wasn't. I was not in control. Like that episode of Sapphire and Steel, or Serial rather, where, like, at the end it's revealed that the reason why those people were coming back and traveling through time was because, like, this being that was a combination of every animal had escaped, and it looked like a little white rat, but you never really fully saw it. It was just a blur, and, like, the entire episode was also a blur, and that was also the episode with the deadly pillows. And 90% of it was them wandering around that abandoned apartment building. Yet it was great. God. I really sincerely wish I lived in the timeline where PJ Hammond was a regular Doctor Who writer.
He wrote 2 episodes of Torchwood, and actually,
it's not enough.
I mentioned this when we were watching this. Like, this episode, Village of the Angels, heavily reminds me of his second Torchwood episode, the one with the theater and the carny, not the carnies, kind of the carnies, actually.
Yeah, those.
What was the name of that episode?
I don't remember. Something at the Electro or something like that. I don't know.
From Out of the Rain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It also reminded me of that Sapphire and Steel story, the one where that they're trying to defeat this being that's in like it's in every photograph. If you remember that one.
Yeah. That was assignment
4.
Five,
Four.
four. Five was the only one not written by P.J. Hammond.
And the reason this one kind of reminded me of that is like they're heavily using the image of the angel becomes an angel thing, even to greater effect, I think, than Stephen Moffat did, even though he came up with it.
I think they're using it more successfully in this episode too. I think because of the fact that the Doctor mentioned that it takes great effort for the angel to do that I think that line completely reframes that whole thing, because originally it was just like, oh, the angels can be anything, but now it's like the angels really want to get you if they go through the effort of turning an image of themselves into an angel.
Well, and it's also because there's sort of a trade-off to it, right? It's like they need to keep an eye on the angel, so they set up this CCTV, but at the same time, an image of an angel becomes an angel, so that's also a detriment to them.
Yeah, they're doing the calculus of like, is it better to watch the angel with the risk of the angel coming in here through the TV than to like not be able to watch the angels at all and have them run amok in the living room? We should listen to that Big Finish audio drama Paradise 5, adapted from a script that P.J. Hammond wrote for Doctor Who.
That we should.
During season 23, Trial of a Time Lord.
Yes, we should. So, like we said, they're escaping in the underground catacombs, and it looks like some of the ancient, tribes or groups or whatever that lived here, centuries ago, really screwing them over because they had drawn some cave paintings of angels.
So, before we get too deep into this escape, actually before this escape happens, we get Belle on this planet. The floating canals
of Pusano or something like that.
Something like that. Something vaguely Italian.
This we should mention that like this had been going on throughout the episode. We actually just kind of skipped it, which is fine.
Yeah, but like what happens now-ish in the episode is when Azure shows up. But to get to the context of that, Belle has come to this planet because her and Vinder originally planned to come here on their honeymoon, which of course they could not do because Vinder was on active deployment, so they really only honeymooned in his bedroom. She discovers a man who says that there was another way off the planet. There were a bunch of other people there, and they're being taken off by some mysterious helping figure. And so the very first scene with her on the planet, that's the extent of that scene. So you're kind of left wondering, who is this mysterious helper figure? Is it someone we know? The second time we go back to this planet in the episode, we discover that this helper person is Azure, and she is kidnapping people into a prisoner form.
Right. So we see her do that. She basically abducts the entire congregation, and the Belle saves.
Belle recognizes the prisoner. Yeah,
the passenger. Right. She.
The passenger, sorry, the prisoner. Thinking about Patrick McGowan, I guess.
She rescues the one guy that she'd been talking to, though. They just duck. So the thing that like brings you into the passenger is just like paper thin, so you can just duck under it.
Yeah, that was the most like unusual aspect of this episode. Is that like the transport field that transports you into the passenger is just like a paper thin beam that's at like knee height. And if it contacts you at all, you get teleported into the passenger.
Oh god, you just brought back my memory of what was it? The most recent, I forgot what it's called, the most recent Predator movie. The part where the guy's like, there's like this razor blade saw flying towards him, and he has to choose either to duck or jump over it, and he just doesn't make a decision and just gets sliced in half. What the hell was the latest Predator called? Now it's
it was just called The Predator.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's why I forgot. Or maybe it was because it wasn't a very good movie.
There's just so many Predator movies that are some variation on just Predator. Like there's the first one, which is Predator. With what is it? The Predator?
No, it's Predator. But then there's also Predators, which is the third one.
And then there's The Predator, which is the most recent
Predator,
one.
Predator 2, Predators, The Predator.
Predator doesn't sound like a word anymore.
And then there's Prey, the up-and-coming one.
Yeah, that one actually sounds like a really cool concept. Better than The Predator. The Predator wasn't a very original concept. In the Predator also, franchise. Of course,
Alien vs. Predator.
Of course. Great. Check out our thoughts on Predator on Triple Play, our Predator podcast.
It's a movie trilogy podcast on which we've covered Predator. Anyway, the guy that Belle saves is not very appreciative. He still doesn't believe that Azure was abducting people into the passenger to be imprisoned and killed. So he's not very happy about the situation.
Yeah, well, sucks, man. You're alive now. He storms off. He tells Belle to figure it out on her own. And she's like, okay. And she goes off and leaves. We don't actually see Belle again this episode in the flesh. We see a hologram of her later on, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, our main trio in the Doctor, Eustachius, and Claire are making their great escape. There are it looks like, in addition to the paintings on the walls, it seems to be that there are some angels like baked into the walls as well, which is horrifying.
Well, we should also... I can't believe we're delaying this escape yet longer, because we should actually explain what Dan and Yaz are up to, because
right
that ties into what she sees when she actually escapes this tunnel. So Dan and Yaz have found Gerald and Jane, who have also been sent back in time by an angel.
Mm-hmm. It's actually the scene in which that happens is actually really funny, but we don't have to detail it.
Yeah, they just think it's like some guy playing a prank on them, and they're like, well, let's carry this statue back to the graveyard.
Yeah, and Gerald, he touches the angel, and he goes like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, so then he goes back into the past, and he finds Peggy, and he's like yelling at Peggy, like, how dare you like run off like that? Come on, Peggy. He like ignoring the fact that it's like daytime now, which Jane is like, how is it daytime, Gerald? And he's like, it doesn't matter, we found Peggy. And they're all looking at an angel. And Peggy has this ominous, like, poltergeist-esque line, which is like, nobody survives them twice. Because they're all begging Gerald and Jane not to, like, walk in front of the angel, to, like, keep their eyes on it.
Yeah. Just to nitpick what you're saying, it's actually Jean.
Jean, sorry. I don't know why I'm saying Jane. Probably because of Geraint, but anyway... They walk in front of the angel, and for the first time, we see somebody get killed by an angel.
Yeah.
They get disintegrated into rocks. It was around this point in the episode when this actually happened, which was actually like 20 minutes before where we actually are in explaining the plot of the episode, that I was like, I bet Mrs. Hayward is Peggy in the future. And guess what? I was right.
Yeah, congrats. We've also, at this point in the episode, seen that the perimeter of the town is just like a massive abyss of like nothingness.
Yeah, the town has been like transplaced off of Earth.
Yeah, it's not an abyss of nothing. It's like space, but Yeah.
Well, it's almost nothing. It's space. It's all of space that got left that survived the flux.
Right, which, as Bell keeps mentioning, is almost nothing, despite visual evidence to the contrary.
Imagine if Chris Chibnall just hit and run Doctor Who in his final like act as showrunner and just used the flux. You know, we keep talking about how flux means change. Chris Chibnall just uses the flux to like wipe out the Cybermen, the Daleks, and basically every other like recurring villain from the Doctor Who universe. Like just wipes them out completely using the flux. Daleks dead, Cybermen dead, Autons dead, Weeping Angels dead, the Silence dead.
The Silence, yeah. Well, you mean they would just bring them back? Like you know they would. If anyone ever did that, if any showrunner or just writer for the show ever did write a story in which their intention was to do something like that, it would just be undone sooner or later.
Yeah, kind of like how Russell T did that with the Time War and then like instantly undid it a season later and was like, oh yeah, actually the Cybermen survived in an alternate universe and the Daleks survived somehow and Davros is alive and the Master survived the Time War too.
Oh my god, people are actually watching this show again. Quick, bring back all the previous villains.
And then Moffat was just like, Gallifrey's not actually destroyed. It's alive.
Okay, it was in a painting, okay? I don't even remember. Probably shouldn't even be making
that
fun
whole
of it
episode like is completely unclear on like how they saved Gallifrey. Like, is it in the painting? Is it at the end of the universe? Is it both?
In a way, that's pretty PJ Hammond-esque.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, so they are walking through the town and eventually come to... Peggy takes them to what she says Mrs. Hayward always said was like... What did she say? It was a... I don't know what she said that Mrs. Hayward always says it was, but Peggy's like, it's not that though. It's a gravesite. It's a Weeping Angel gravesite. And the camera kind of pans up and there's just like tons of angels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of this like rift. And so one side of it's in the dark and one is in the light. And so they're in the light side, and the Doctor and Jericho are currently escaping, and they're kind of between two angels back to back, and the Doctor says, if I go this way, you go that way, we can trick the angels into looking at each other. And unfortunately, Jericho sneezes as he crosses around the angel, which causes one of the angels to get him and sends him back in time, and he shows up right next to Dan and Yaz.
Yep.
Convenient. The Doctor then says something like, well, I guess I just have to make a run for it, and she tries, but then realizes that like they're not chasing her, so he's like, what what are you guys doing? And they're like, well,
prank.
It's just a prank, bro. She thinks this is kind of weird, understandably. She's kind of like, why aren't you chasing me? So she just kind of walks out and discovers the rift. She sees Dan and Yaz on the other side, and then sees that she's surrounded by like 100 angels.
Yeah, she sort of emerges from the catacombs, resurfaces, and yeah, she's surrounded, she's ambushed. Standing
atop the catacomb is Claire, and the Doctor tries to talk to Claire to say that she can still get them out of this, that she can still, she can still fulfill her end of the bargain with the angel, but Claire responds no, no, because the angel has made a different deal with the other angels.
Yep. And you then see in another horrific moment, you see the Doctor being herself lapidified. Just sort of, not a situation you'd want to find yourself in.
Well, so just before that happens,
I don't know why I know the word lapidified. But whatever.
Why not?
Yeah, well, she's sort of being like actually, just petrified or yeah.
Yeah, as I say, just before that happens, Dan and Yaz tell her that the town is basically floating in space, and Claire says something like, yeah, we needed to do that for the quantum extraction, and the Doctor's like, quantum extraction? Wait a minute. what do you mean quantum extraction?
She goes, "This is Doctor Who Flux, baby. We don't explain what we mean."
Dan has a really funny line that I wrote down that I just want to mention when he's talking with Jericho, and Jericho like wants to cross back to save the Doctor, and Dan stops him, and then later on, the Doctor approaches the kind of boundary line, is like gonna cross, and Yaz is like, no, you can't cross. Like anything gets destroyed. Like we're trapped here in 1901, and Jericho goes, well, what? And Dan goes, perhaps we should have broken that to you more gently.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But yeah, like you said, the Doctor gets we should not undercut the moment, because Claire says that the only thing the Weeping Angel, the division, so these Weeping Angels also work for the division, and she says that the only thing that these angels want more than the angel inside Claire is you, the Doctor. And then she says something like, Doctor, you're recalled to division. And then she gets petrified and turned into a Weeping Angel.
And that's the end of that. Or so you think.
Yeah, I don't know why they decided to do this, but they have a fake out ending where the credits start and they go, nope, we have a mid-credit sequence.
It's just it's sort of another meta thing, or like something adjacent to that.
Yeah, so in this kind of mid-credit scene, Vinda lands on the planet of the floating canals, and he finds the guy from earlier, and he's like, hey, have you seen this woman Belle? And he's like, yeah, she's gone though, but she did leave something behind if you want to see it. So he goes to see, and it's this like hologram, and she's like, oh yeah, like as you can see, I was here, but like I saw like this woman putting people into passengers, so I gotta go save people, so like that's where I'm going, and like I love you, and also by the way, these are the coordinates I'm going to know, and then it ends.
Mm-hmm. We should also mention that the guy she saved realizes, he tells Vinder, like, looking back, I think she actually saved my life. He understands what she did.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that Belle like didn't leave enough time. I don't. She starts the message by saying, "I only get one shot at this, and there's limited time, so I better make this quick." Like you would think, knowing that, you would start by saying, "Okay, these are my coordinates," and then put in the rest of the message. Especially if the point of your message is so that the person you're giving it to knows where you are. But whatever.
Well, interestingly enough, she apparently valued telling Vinder that she loves him more than that, which follows from kind of what she told the Cyberman in the last episode.
Yeah, which is interesting. And then that's the actual end of the episode. And then, of course, we get the preview of next week where we see an Ood, and also Kate Stewart and Unit back once again after Chris Chibnall hit and run Unit and destroyed them due to budgetary concerns in universe, not outside of universe.
Yeah, that was in what, Resolution that they did that?
Yeah, because the Doctor tries to call Unit and she gets like a call center, and she's like, is this Unit? And they're like, no, Unit's been disbanded because of the budget.
Oh yeah, she ended up calling GCHQ or something like that, didn't she? Yeah.
And yeah, so the episode is over. Again, a lot more questions, I feel like, than answers, We've learned now that the Weeping Angels can, I guess, turn, perhaps, it's unclear whether they can just turn anybody into Weeping Angels, or if it's only division members they can turn into Weeping Angels. Stephen has a little interesting thing on that in his email that we'll get to in a little bit. That's also kind of an interesting shout out with regard to that scene. Just, what a cliffhanger, like, what a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I obviously really enjoyed it. I think it goes without saying that I liked this one, and I'm probably gonna like the next two as well. Once again, just like I thought with the previous two Jodie Whittaker seasons, I think Flux Series 13 is one of the best seasons of Doctor Who in its entirety. So, and I don't remember if we said this while we were watching the episodes or if we actually said it on recording, but I'll just say it again in case we didn't. Like, even if they completely drop the ball on how this thing ends, or like, even if the next 2 episodes completely suck, I think it'll have been worth it.
I think so too. These 4 episodes we've gotten so far, like, these are quality so far. These are great, you know? Village of the Angels is up there with some of my favorite Jodie Whittaker episodes, you know, like Rosa and Villa Diodati, and I'm trying to think of the names of more Jodie Whittaker episodes off the top of my head. Like, the plots are hanging in my head, but the names are not.
It takes you away. For me, this one is like up there.
It takes you away, yeah.
And interestingly enough, there has been sort of that vibe to this
Fugitive of the Jadoon
era in a way where it's like it takes you away. Had sort of a horror vibe. This one, Haunting of oh my God, Haunting of Villa Diodati in a way as well, with the explicit references to well, the Villa Diodati, but where sort of horror definitely has roots, but like, yeah, it's weird to think about that. Like, there's been that vibe to a lot of these Chibnall / Whittaker episodes, Chibnall Whittaker era episodes.
Yeah, it's interesting that this episode ended up being so good. I know when we started watching it, we were both like, the first 15 minutes are like, yeah, this is kind of like, it's kind of boring. It's kind of slow. Like, there's not a lot going on right now, which isn't bad, but it doesn't feel like it's advancing really anything. But then all of a sudden it just like really starts to pick up the pace, and by the end it's just this frenetic, like, what is going on?
Yeah,
maybe even more so than some of the other episodes this season.
It does seem like the structure they're kind of going for here is like, I assume 5 and 6 won't follow this, but 1 through 4 pretty much do, where it's like, you get one episode that's sort of very heavy on the Flux storyline, and then one that is a little bit detached from it, not completely, but brings back sort of classic Doctor Who villain as its main problem to solve, like the Sontarans or the Angels. Not that the Angels are from classic Who, but they are classic, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's definitely, like we pointed out last week, one episode of grand overarching plot advancement, one episode on a much smaller scale that still answers questions,
Or asks them.
Or asks them, yeah. I mean, I still have I have more questions after this episode. Like, okay, so the Weeping Angels work for the Division 2, like, and then, like, how's the Doctor going to get out of being a Weeping Angel? The preview for next week indicates that Dan and Yaz are stuck in 1901 for frickin' 3 years. So, I guess it's 1904. Very Girl Who Waited-esque there. It's going to be hard to reconcile, like, the 3 additional years of life experience that Dan and Yaz have at the end of this. And, of course, Eustace's Jericho is, I guess, hanging out with them now. This season has introduced so many characters that are in multiple episodes that have, like, recurring plot threads. Like Jericho, like Belle, like Claire, like Vinda. All these people who are not companions but are, like, recurring within the universe. And I kind of really enjoy that. We haven't really... Moffat never really did that. I mean, he had River Song. Russell T did it to an extent, with, like, Harriet Jones, who we saw go from... When we first met her, she was just an MP, and then she becomes Prime Minister, and then she becomes the former Prime Minister because she ends up having to resign. Just having these characters in the universe who the Doctor knows and interacts with, but aren't companions, don't travel with the Doctor. That, I think, is really interesting, and I enjoy when the show does that. So I'm also really enjoying that aspect of Flux as well.
Yeah, well, Russell T also had Jackie and Mickey for the first, like, their initial depiction was that. Obviously, Mickey becomes a more proper companion later on, but, like, they were initially sort of that. Yeah,
I guess Moffat also, like, he kind of does it with the Paternoster gang, with Jenny and Vastra and Strax.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
But I guess what I mean is like I like having these ordinary people that we always meet. Okay, Vinda and Belle, maybe not ordinary, but like Jericho, or like Diane. These are like ordinary people who we run into multiple times. And then, like you said, like Mickey or Jackie. Or again, Harriet Jones. These are not like extraordinary aliens or like displaced in time. They're just like people who go about their days and we see the impact that the Doctor has on their lives at multiple points. And that's something, again, that I enjoy about Flux. Chris Chibnall has always done pretty well. These, Chibnall, one of Chibnall's strengths that the other two showrunners, I think, kind of maybe, weren't as good at was making you care about a character who's only in one episode or like who's just a regular person.
Who's only in 2 seconds like that. I mean, you don't really care about him, but like that guy in A Woman Who Fell to Earth who like that guard.
He puts he's like on the phone. He's like, I'll see you guys. I'll see you grandchildren tonight. Puts down the phone, immediately gets killed. You're like, no.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Chris Boucher, except Boucher, his version of that was like getting you to hate someone in 2 seconds. Well, I think the only thing that I had to mention that I haven't so far really is that like I heard before we watched the episode that this one was actually like kind of scary. I was like, yeah, all right, how bad could it be? It's Doctor Who, for God's sake. And like it wasn't scary, but I think that was because we were watching it together and kind of cracking jokes as we watched it and stuff like this. But like I think if I watched this alone later at night, I think it actually would have been pretty scary.
Yeah, I agree. I think this episode, I don't think it's the first episode of Doctor Who to be like that. I don't think it's going to be the last, but it is one of those ones. It's like if I was watching this alone at night, I would be jumpy every time after the episode ended. I'd be jumpy every time a door closed and it wasn't me, I'd be like, what is that? And again, I think it's because like one of the things that Chibnall and Alderton both did in this episode really well was raising the stakes of the angels without making them feel played out. When Moffat introduced the image of an angel becomes an angel thing, there were no stakes to that. It was just like, oh no, the TV screen was going to kill Amy. They didn't really use it again in that episode. But then it was like in this episode where the Doctor had to make that choice between watching the angels but potentially giving them a way in through the TV, but if she doesn't watch the angels, then they'll just break down the door because no one will be watching them, right? And then also introducing the like, well, they need a lot of effort to do that, and that also underscores like the angel being inside of Claire's mind is like the Doctor says, like it must have taken you so much energy and effort to hide yourself in here. So I don't know, it's just a very effective episode for me. Probably my favorite of Flux so far. Probably my favorite of the season so far. And that's my assessment of the episode.
Yeah, I agree. This is the best one so far.
Very excited to see Kate next week. I'm going to be honest. Or I guess in like a day after this goes out.
Yeah.
Very excited to see Kate come back. Very excited to see the Ood come back.
I just want to know what this all is.
I know. I just want to know what this is all leading up to. Like, how does this all end? How does, where is this all going?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine our episode next week is going to be us sitting down and talking and being like, how does this end? How do you wrap all of this up in 50 minutes?
Just wait for the week after that, our definitely 2+ hour Flux finale. It's going to be.
I was thinking the other day we should have really like tracked all the theories we made, and then in the final episode of the season done a like, which theories did we make and which of them came true and which of them were way off the mark.
I have a pretty good recollection of the ones I've made so far, so we should be able
to I do too.
Do something along those lines.
I think that would be really interesting to do at the end of the season. But otherwise, I think I'm actually I don't have anything else to say about Village of the Angels specifically, so I think we can lead into some of our segments. There are a couple classic Who, but also reboot Who references in this. The psychic paper we already mentioned, of course.
Versus the polarity we also already mentioned. That's just a big one.
Yeah,
when
when she makes, when she goes into Claire's mind, she says contact, which is originally appeared thanks to the TARDIS wiki letting me know. I knew it was in the classic show, but I don't know where. In the Three Doctors, that was the first time that appeared, so that's also a reference there. Those are the only ones I picked up. Actually, she says something about somebody. I think Jericho says something about theta waves suggesting a sleep state, which I feel like theta waves have been mentioned on the show before, but I don't know where.
Yeah, Theta Sigma, the Doctor's real name. Remember
the Doctor's real name?
When God, who wrote that? I think it was Bob Baker and Dave Martin tried to hit and run Doctor Who with the Doctor's real name being Theta Sigma.
Luckily, that didn't catch on. I mean, this is something I was talking about this with someone who was like, I don't really like the Timeless Child reveal. And I'm like, Doctor Who fans have always picked the weirdest aspects of canon, in quotes, quote, canon, unquote, to fixate on and believe is just like truth. Like the 13 regenerations thing is my example. That was Robert Holmes hit and running Doctor Who and just being like, yeah, I can regenerate 12 times for 13 incarnations. Like just a throwaway line in one random episode that's not even related to Gallifrey. The Doctor just says it to I don't remember who it was, like Romana or Leela, it was the fourth Doctor. And then
and just to explain, at a time when they're so far away from that it's like it wasn't even on the radar that they might actually have to deal with this one day, right?
Yeah. And then somewhat near the end of the classic era, when they started to realize that this might become a problem at some point, they then have one of the other, the Doctor again mentioned I might regenerate thousands of times, but for some reason everybody fixates on this 13 because it has to be true because it was said first. Neglecting the fact that 95% of everything the fourth Doctor ever said was a joke or a lie. So that was my point is that people, Doctor Who fans, fixate on such the smallest details and fixate on that and has to be true because it's already been said, neglecting the context and who said it and potential retcons later on. So anyway, just I guess my point was people oh well, the Timeless Child throws away everything they've done before. And literally in the classic show they were throwing away previous lore. There is really no one consistent lore to the show. The Timeless Child is the least egregious retcon of all time because it barely even conflicts anything.
Yeah, there is almost no consistency whatsoever across the history of Doctor Who.
And if I remember correctly, it isn't even until the fifth Doctor that the Doctor even mentions what incarnation he's in for fully 4 incarnations. If I can remember, he could have been on 16, 17, 18, and 19 for all we knew.
If I remember correctly, that reference during the fifth Doctor isn't even a direct thing. It's just a line that people later on took to mean that was an indication that he was the fifth Doctor.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's fully believable that the first 7 Doctors never explicitly state that they're the first 7 Doctors. There's not till the reboot that they really solidify that all in place.
Well, you know what they say about Doctor Who fans? Can't live with them. Yeah, that's it. Just can't live with them. No, can't live without him. It's just the first part. I guess I'm unfortunately including myself, or maybe it's fortunate. Actually, yeah, it probably is fortunate that I'm including myself in that.
Well, our next segment is Britain's 10 actors.
Yeah.
So my I think we both looked up 2, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. The first person I looked up is actually Professor Jericho, Eustachius Jericho, Kevin McNally, who played, if you can believe it, Gibbs in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I didn't recognize him at all. We've watched those movies on Triple Play, a Predator podcast.
Oh, God. Yeah, I didn't recognize him either.
But he's also been in The Crown, that TV show about the Crown, Catherine the Great, Dad's Army, The Lost Episodes, The Outpost, Unforgotten, Turn, Washington Spies, a series I remember hearing about but never watched, Designated Survivor, Fleabag, excuse me, 24, he was in an episode of 24, The Mill, he did a voice role in Assassin's Creed 3, he was in 3 episodes of Downton Abbey, Supernatural, CSI, the original CSI, the original brand, Wuthering Heights. He has Johnny English, MI5, a TV show just called Dad, a TV series just called Underworld. Trying to see if there's anything else that I recognize. Just so many acting credits here. He was in The Twin Dilemma, actually, as Hugo Lang.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Z-Cars, of course, ITV Playhouse, Survivors. It's pretty much everything I recognize. He's been acting since 1976, so you can imagine there's a lot of acting credits there. 155.
Yeah, he seems to have quite a career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, I guess next we have Annabelle Sholey, who plays Claire. She doesn't have nearly as many roles. Only 22 here, according to IMDb. So she was in Poirot, Holby City, Doctors, Jane Eyre, EastEnders, Being Human, Personal Affairs, a bunch of other stuff throughout the early and mid-teens, whatever. The Salisbury Poisonings, that seems interesting. Britannia, The Split, a couple other things as well. So, yeah.
Nice. I looked up after that Vincent Brimble, who plays Gerald. He's got quite a few acting credits. Nothing super interesting. Emmerdale Farm, Tokyo Trial, Doctors, War and Peace, a TV series called Wizards vs. Aliens. What? Okay. I take back the not very interesting statement. Casualty, The Bill, Warriors of the Deep Part 4, 3, 2, and 1 as Tarpak. Nice. Warriors of the Deep, a classic Doctor Who episode, one of the greats. And Z-Cars, what I recognize there.
Dang, Z-Cars, that's a name I haven't heard in a long while, like 3 weeks. Anyway, wrapping things up here, we have Gemma Churchill, who played Jean. She also has a pretty long career. She was in series such as No Place Like Home, Paradise Postponed, the Britos Empire, EastEnders, Strange But True, Bugs, The Bill, Dangerfield, Red Dwarf, also in Holby City, Jekyll, let's see, what else, Doctors, Emerald Farm, Call the Midwife, and a bunch of other things as well, so, yeah.
Nice. So we have an email from Steven to read, titled Village of the Angels. Hey guys, happy Doctor Who Day as of when I'm sending this. The email arrived on November 23rd. Fun fact, Michelle Gomez was born exactly 3 years after the show premiered. Guess she was destined to be on the show. She recently played Madame Rouge in DC's Doom Patrol and even had a time machine. Reminds me of when Arthur Darvill played Time Master Rip Hunter in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Doom Patrol is actually my favorite live-action TV show because it gets super ridiculous like old-school comic books, but also handles discussions of trauma and family issues in a compelling, down-to-earth way. Anyway, I find it interesting that Village of the Angels took place November 21st, the same date that it aired, but in a different year, of course. I found it to be better than the first half of Flux, but I'm still not sure that I liked it very much. The Angels just don't really scare me much anymore, despite some of the ways they were used here to be somewhat creative. The ending made for a nice cliffhanger. It makes me wonder whether it's inspired by that fan theory that the Time Lords become weeping angels as a result of the end of the final 10th Doctor special, The End of Time. The glitching in the credits was weird, but I guess was supposed to let people know there was a mid-credit scene. I hope there's a really good payoff, but for now I feel like I'm just along for the ride and not much more, but we'll see. Also, in the previous Trust Your Doctor episode, you guys were debating who would be the pun expert between you two, since people who know me call me a pun master, and I even wrote an essay in college about puns in poetry. I feel like I have some credibility in weighing in on this matter. Between Dylan and Keon, I think Keon is the pun expert. He has used them from time to time, such as Dr. Sahus and the various uses of Lex. Looking forward to more puns and Flux discussion. Cheers, Stephen. Well, let's not forget my crowning moment. The one pun I'm proud of, Flight Through Entiresome. Shout out to Flight Through Entirety. Which is a reference to the fact that their favorite word to describe episodes that are boring or long or not very interesting is tiresome. So the one time I made a joke about them renaming the podcast Flight Through Entiresome.
Yeah, which they actually did. They changed their banner for a bit. That was years ago, man. That was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was years ago. They changed it for about a week. But yeah, so also the theory Stephen is referencing comes from the fact that there's that one lady who some people think is the Doctor's mother in the end of time when all the Time Lords are coming back, who looks at the Doctor and the Doctor makes eye contact with her and she covers her face with her two hands, like in the same way that the angels do, and the same way that the 13th Doctor does at the end of this episode when she becomes an angel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all the emails we have.
Yep, and it looks like we don't have any comments on the social media accounts either, unless I'm just missing something here. Oh no, we actually do. This wasn't on one of our posts about the episode, but I just posted a random post saying Flux has been fantastic so far, and Steven responded, I hope I feel something like this by the end. Kind of saying the same thing he mentioned in his email there. So, yeah, I mean, I hope you find something to enjoy about it, Stephen. It doesn't seem like you're fully hating it or anything based on your emails and your comments and stuff like that. And just talking about it with you in an unrelated manner to the podcast. Manner unrelated to the podcast, I should say. But, yeah, hope you find something to enjoy about it, I guess.
Yeah. Hopefully soon. Because there's only 2 episodes left.
If it's not soon, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadentvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Village of the Angels, and again, any part of Flux. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable, and you can find us anywhere you find a podcast at Trust Your Doctor or Doctor Who podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're going to be watching the ominously named Survivors of the Flux. But until then, the end.